Hello and welcome to the Old Man Orange Podcast. I'm Spencer Scott Holmes.
And I'm Ryan Dunnigan.
And we finally get to doing our big old top 10 movies of 2021. Kind of like it's always like our finale thing, I guess you'd say, of the year, even though we always do it in January. But you know what I mean. Whatever. It feels like feels like the end of like a podcast year season when we get to this episode. And then we start fresh on God knows whatever we want to do. But yeah, we get to 2021, and this was like one of the most interesting years, I guess, of probably movies, because though there is like a lot of good stuff, and I mean, I'm not saying there's not good stuff out there, it felt like it's a year full of like almost like more like a lot of, hey, that's a great movie, but not really those like, here's a copious amount of amazing flicks and it's going to be so hard to decide which list it goes and all this kind of stuff like that, you know? Like how I would say like 2019 and back kind of were.
Yeah, this year for me personally, movie-wise, there were movies that came out that I definitely liked, and there are movies that I'm like, oh, I know for a fact this is going to be my list. But then as I was kind of preparing, I was looking like, well, that's a good movie. That's a good movie too. And then I'm just kind of looking like, well, I mean, I liked it, but I mean, I'll put it on the list. Why not? You know, it's kind of like that. Not trying to put all this stuff down, but it's just one of those things. Like, there's just not very many movies that blew me away this year, but there are still movies I liked. You know, so. Yeah,
well, I feel like that's the same way I kind of felt too. Is like, it's one of those ones where it's like they're good movies, but they're like those ones that like it felt like if it was a normal year, they would probably be, I hate to sort of say it, but like the top 20 section, not necessarily the top 10. Not saying all of them, but you know, some of them. I know that feels like one of those ones like, okay, so here we go, start a list. Yeah, the movies, they're okay. I mean, if you want to stick around.
Well, I feel like also ever since 2020. It's been harder for me to kind of go out and just, not just because of the pandemic or whatever and releases, but also because of like where I live now. I have to kind of really go to my way to go to a movie theater now. Mm-hmm. So, and it's got to be, I got to plan it out now. I have a dog, so I just can't leave the dog alone, so all this kind of thing, you know. So, it's one of those things where I didn't see as much as I did previous years. And out of that, I like to have my lists be a little varied. Like, okay, here's a Marvel movie. Here's like a Noah Bacaba movie. Here's like some weird random kind of like drama movie I saw at some point. Or here's, you know, like I try to mix it up. Throw a documentary in there. This year, the way it turned out, it's like 90% like adaptations of things I like, sequels, things that we've been on record of saying we like. It's not going to be a big surprise this year. There are things I wanted to check out but didn't get a chance to. But you know, these
yeah. Well, this year, just you know, you could only go to the movie theaters for so many months out of the year. There's still that like blockade point, and even still there is lesser films. I mean, even when we kind of went to Christmas, it's like normally you'd be like, oh shit, for 1 week straight you're going to the movie theater like every single day. This time I was like, oh, there's only a couple of them to see. Oh, that's interesting. You know, not saying anything against it, but let's get on to the list. We don't need to babble on too long here, but let's start with number 10. Who wants to go first?
I can go first. So, my number 10 is a movie called Paper Tigers. Now, something I want to point out before, now the thing says 2020. The thing is, it went to like 1 or 2 film festivals in 2020. It didn't actually get distributed until 2021. And I feel like, I think we're on the same page on this, where it's kind of like, whenever something's like, oh yeah, it's a 2020, well, when did it come out? Oh, it didn't really get an official release until 2000. All right then, well, I mean, how the fuck are like people outside this random film festival supposed to see it? So I'm counting it as a 2021 movie for myself.
Yeah, I always say if the general public can't see it yet, then it's not there. The same kind of goes with foreign films too. Like, I feel like if a foreign film's kind of landlocked in like 2020, but then it finally gets a U.S. release in 2021, well, then it's a 2021 movie by that standard.
So this movie, Paper Tigers, it got released to Netflix, and what it is the movie's good. I thought the movie was really fun. Mm-hmm. I'm kind of in love with the concept more than the movie, but it's like, what if the three... Remember a lot of those like early 90s martial arts movies and late 80s martial arts movies. It's kind of like, what if the 3 ninjas grew up? Is kind of the concept. And what it is it's these guys that are middle-aged, and they were like in their late teens back in like, like 90, 91, 92, around that time, and they were at this particular dojo, and they had this very respected master, and they were badasses, and they could talk all this mad shit and do this stuff. And the opening is like, like home, like
home footage,
like home, yeah, the word escaped me for a minute. Home footage of just these guys doing tournaments, whether it be like at some dude's garage or somebody, like a big official tournament, and just mopping the floor with people. And then it jumps like years later to present day, and they're just a bunch of guys. Like, one of them doesn't do martial arts anymore. One of them fucked up their leg and can't kick anymore. The other is a dude who kept in shape and kept martial art, but he doesn't do martial arts. He just does MMA now. So it's this kind of like, and their master dies, and they decide to go on a hunt to see who did it. And it was somebody that did a move the master taught them. One of those kind of like, this move will kill you with the right pressure kind of thing.
So it's like the Akuma of the group.
Yeah. So they're going to find out who this person is. And the movie is a kind of a dramatic comedy / martial arts movie. And there's like some things they just speak on, like, there's like people that there's like these like, really douchey, like wannabe, like hip hop kids that like they're Asian kids that think they're dressed all like like they're in a K-pop band almost, and they're like, yeah man, we represent this dojo now, get the fuck out of here, that kind of attitude. Like, who are these little fucks, and they go in to kind of like, and they like, the first like, one of them like gets his ass kicked, like, you just got your ass kicked by a 19-year-old dude, like, fuck you, so it's like PG-13, but it's around that area, but each character, it's kind of like there's the one black dude in the group of the main characters. He's in good shape and he keeps up with all this, but he's not kept up with this particular style. He's forgotten a lot of it because he does martial art
or MMA, which is still martial art, mixed martial arts.
Yeah, still martial arts, but not like the traditionalist kind of thing, which is what And then the second guy on the team is more of like he's like the strategist, and he knows all the basic know-how, but he can't fucking kick anymore. And every time he kicks, he basically just starts dry heaving and can't he screams in pain. So there's a part where he's like talking shit like, your forms are wrong, this and that, you gotta have like this, gotta have like that, like, show me. He's like, kicks, like, oh fuck, goes down. And then the other guy, he's just kind of like, he used to be the best of them. He's just like, I just don't know, guys. He's like the one that's kind of like the one that was always the gung-ho of the group. He's now the more reserved, he's divorced, all this and
he's
that.
broken.
And essentially you could say, it's a couple of things. It's like if the Three Ninjas are like one of those kind of 90s kids martial arts movies, if those guys grew up, but it's also kind of like a traditional old school martial arts movie in the aspect of we're trying to find who killed our master. And the martial arts in it's actually pretty good. It's not like, Yun Wu Ping, but it's really good martial arts scenes, I'd say, So, yeah, I recommend that one. It's easy. It's on Netflix, and if you like martial arts movies, good one to check out.
Yeah, that one sounds really good. I had no idea about that, but those Netflix movies are always the ones they just always escape me because they just sort of...
It's always a roll of the dice, in all honesty.
And they always just sort of... Yeah, well, that's the thing, though, is like, there's so many of those Netflix movies you turn on, and they're kind of just... They just felt like you just bought the straight-to-DVD, like, 18th sequel of something, and you're like, oh, that's... So it's like, I feel like that's always such a roll of the dice. And this, in my opinion, I just always feel like they never have any advertisement for them unless you look at Netflix all the time. Like, they just sort of like come on out, and then next thing you know, there's something brand new the next week, and so they just get put under the rug. But that one actually sounds really cool. I'd like to have to check that one out. But going on to my number, or you got more to say on that?
I was just going to say, if I didn't turn on Netflix the day it came on Netflix, I probably wouldn't have seen it, because it's on the big banner, and then after that one day, get the fuck out of here.
Yeah, we got something else in here, and that's sort of what happens. It's like you got like a brief moment to sort of catch it. But I guess speaking of my number 10 is also one of those few movies that appears on like the banner thing for like a moment, a little bit longer than others, but it's not a Netflix one, it's an Amazon one. But mine's the Coming to America, the sequel.
I didn't see that, and Yeah, I heard you say it was pretty good, so it must be good for you if it's on your number 10. You know?
Yeah, well, that's like one of my, like, when I think of like those like childhood favorite kind of classic comedies and so on. And plus, when I was a kid, I just loved anything Eddie Murphy, no matter what. Like Beverly Hills Cop was one of my favorite things, but Coming to America was also one of those other ones that was just pure awesome. And what I liked about the Coming to America one is that I felt like it was a very well done sequel for a comedy, because that's a lot of times, that's always a tough one when you do a comedy. Not saying comedy sequels can't be good, but when you do a comedy sequel, like literally like 25 plus years later, that's actually even longer than that. It's like almost 30 years later. Because I think Coming to America, the original is like 88, might be 87. But so that's a long time to kind of go. And a lot of times when kind of those kind of ones come back, they a lot of times do the thing where they're just like, hey, remember this joke? Remember this joke? Remember this? You know? Which granted, this one, I'm not saying it doesn't have that, like, hey, remember these characters, remember this, and so on. But it felt like it still added like a story that you're like, okay, cool, I want to see what kind of happens here. And it kind of all took place generally in Africa. So it wasn't just like, hey, let's just go back to Queens and kind of retrace the same steps. It's like, no. You got this brand new thing going on. We're going to bring in pretty much just about everybody, which is pretty awesome. The only thing that kind of bummed me out is that Samuel L. Jackson's not in there. I wish they could have just found a way to have him in there and be like, well, what happened to the guy who was the hobo guy that tried to rob, the restaurant? Let's see where he's at now.
He's the crime lord of the city now. He really moved up the ladder.
That's, I mean, I felt there was a place in there for Samuel L. Jackson's character just to have a great, like, 5-minute chew the scenery type scene. But yeah, no, other than that, though, that movie was great. It was hilarious. I mean, I probably haven't watched it I guess in about a year by now almost, because that was like one of those movies that came out like the beginning, like January, boom, 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 right then and there. But solid comedy. I felt like totally respected the original and whatnot, but still added to it. And then it's just kind of nice to see Eddie Murphy kind of back in like sort of a big movie again. It's like that's one of those ones. Like, I mean, I know he kind of got into the whole family thing and so on, but you're kind of like, yo, Eddie, what about us? What, we're not your family? We only pay to see your movies.
Well, it's kind of funny because I was thinking, like, when I was introduced to Eddie Murphy, I knew him as an actor, and most of the stuff in the 90s was kid family stuff. Yeah. And then one day my brother comes in with a VHS of Delirious. Yeah, great. And I'm like in the 3rd grade. I'm like, that's Mushu? And like, it's good to know that he's kind of going back to that kind of like, that type of that some of those kind of roles. I never saw My Name Is. Did he do the Dolomite movie? He did the Dolomite movie, didn't he? Like two or 3 years ago. Oh, did he? I don't know. I don't know if I saw that one. My Name Is Dolomite, I believe. Yeah, where it was about the guy who made Dolomite, But yeah, I wanted to check that one out. But yeah, it's good to know that he's kind of getting back out there and doing, I mean, it's the same character he did before, but at the same time, it's good to know he's kind of going back to that. Yeah, because that's just one of those ones where, you kind of would first hear that, you go, that's an interesting one. Maybe that's a great idea, maybe it's not. But then it's like, no. Very solid, worked out well, very strong comedy, good the whole way through. Definitely worth checking out. But Ryan, that leads you to... What's your number 9? My number 9? Let me just say real quick, up until maybe 4 or 5, these aren't in any real particular order. It's just kind of like, these are the movies I like. My top 10 movies, give or take. Yeah. So it's no real set order up until 4 or 5, I'd say. Well, sometimes when I talk about a movie, then I start I'll be like halfway to be like, you know what? The more we talk about this, I feel like I can reshuffle my list. But that's always kind of how it goes. Yeah, it happens to me every year with this. My number 9 is, I'm going to say, Zack Snyder's Justice League. Mm-hmm. I feel like this Justice League really kind of... I know that it's kind of controversial because technically it's a movie that came out like 2017, and this is the re-release, but I'm going to say that, an extra 2 hours on what was already a 2-hour movie, more or less. I feel like that could be a new movie by this point, and it is like... I'll say this about that movie. It's kind of weird because I feel like when that came out, everybody was like, oh my, when it finally came out, oh my God, it's way better than I thought it would be. It's actually really good. And then almost 4 months later, a bunch of people are like, actually it sucks. we all took it in. You know what? It's not really that fucking good. It actually fucking sucks. Just people turned on it almost immediately. But I still like that. I think that is the better version of Justice League. I wish that, maybe there was they turned up the color a little more, and maybe I feel like the reason why it's a little lower on my list is because even though I feel like it's more fully fleshed out and it's a good story, and it really adds a lot more to the original movie. The only thing is, it really is Zack Snyder putting in every deleted scene in every single thing like that was on his mind and just putting it in there just to get it out there to the world. And as interesting as it is, it doesn't always make it the best movie just because 4 hours, it didn't need to be 4 hours. It could have been like
3.
It could have been 3 hours. And if you take out like 3 of those slow-mo music videos of Lois Lane getting coffee or like Aquaman walking into the storm again, you know, I feel like you could have, or even trimmed down some of the little teaser stuff they had after they beat Steppenwolf. I feel like you probably could have had a good solid 3 hour, 2 hour, 45-minute movie in there somewhere. But regardless, I still really enjoy that movie, and I I'm not kind of like, oh, only if we could have the Snyderverse back. Not so much to that degree, but it shows like, hey, you know, he clearly had a vision, and he got to see his vision, and it was a pretty good movie. And I think that people would have felt different if this was the movie. A variation of this movie is the one that came out in 2017.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and as like I say, I have that one as my number 9 as well too. And the only reason I put it kind of lower is because I felt like, in a sense, because it is sort of it's almost like an old movie unearthed. So it seems kind of like a weird one to kind of compare it in the same year. But I feel like no, it is still really solid. Adds a lot more depth to that film. I mean, I still like the original variation of Justice League quite a bit. I probably like it more than most people. But and I like them each in their own kind of different ways. Now I almost want, it's one of those ones, it's the same way that like the Rocky IV director's cut kind of was, where it's like, cool, it adds in some more scenes, but then you're like, I want the version though that combines like both of them together and just where you kind of get the best of both worlds. And that would be kind of cool to see as a third version of Justice League. Trim it down a little bit, add kind of the stuff that was good from their previous version, kind of added in there. But no, overall, I thought that one was really solid. I mean, I guess we're like the few people that were always kind of like, it was funny when there was that moment where people were like, yeah, we're all pros of Zack Snyder. I almost want to be like, bull fucking shit. Where the hell were you people the last 10 years? Yeah, fucking right. You know what it reminded me of? It reminded me of, this is like, I know it's kind of like local, but like, okay, remember when the 49ers started doing good after like 20 fucking years? You know what I mean? Because I just remember being a kid, like, and I just would say, like, someone asked you what's your favorite football team, you're like, oh, I like the 49ers. And, Dad would be like, oh, the 40-winers? Boo! Why don't you like the Raiders? They're like pirates and rapists. And you're like, well, yeah, I mean, I like the 49ers and whatnot. I mean, nowadays I like any of those teams. They're all California. Well, but fucking Nevada, close enough. But, but like, that's what it sort of reminded me of. And then the second that fucking the 49ers started doing good, like 5 years ago or something like that, everybody's like, oh, I fucking love the 49ers. And it's like, get the fuck out of here. Get the fuck out of here. No, you don't. You just like them because they're winning now.
Who I feel kind of bad for is original Golden State Warrior fans, because I never saw walking around San Francisco until they started winning. I never saw, maybe you see one or two people walking around in a Golden State Warrior jersey or jacket or something. Mm-hmm. But until they started having that winning streak, did I not start seeing it all over the city? Yeah. And then everyone's like, oh, I've always loved them. I've always loved them. And then I loved them when the tickets were $5, and now it's like, and now they're like leaving Oakland and going like to San Francisco. It's like, those are the people that were fucking those are the original fans. What the fuck?
Know. Oakland, I know they make more money just now, getting betrayed and backstabbed and never can win. But that's what it sort of reminded me of. That's what those like new like so-called Zack Snyder fans were, because it was like, fuck you guys, I know for a fact you were those little bitches that were like, Marvel only, Zack Snyder's movies are so stupid, blah 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 blah. But then for some reason he gets this new version out of the director. I don't understand some of those people that just like the turncoats, there's that part. What's that term in like the 1700s? What you'd call like those like Americans that would like side with the British people, the Tories. I think that's what they would call
Tories. Them. I'm just thinking of that part in Outlaw Josie Wales where he goes up and there's the guy and like he has a Confederate jacket on, and all of a sudden like he's the ferryman, he's crossing away, he's just like, we're looking for another Confederate. Oh, you are? He just flips the coat outside down. It's blue. He went that way.
It's like, yep, okay, we're safe now. No, that's totally how it is. But yeah, Justice League, still overall very solid, and like depending on that, I guess you don't get this version, I guess, unless it is 2021. So that's why it can fit on the list. But
so yeah,
continuing the number 8.
Number 8, I'm gonna say I forget the actual name. I think it's just called the finale, but Rurouni Kenshin 5, more or less.
Oh god, that's the one I kept forgetting about that one. It's like I really wanted to see that, and I just totally spaced out that. Once again, another one just kind of gets released in the total background.
I'll say this. One of the reasons a little lower. It starts off kind of slow. Well, actually, no. Opening is fucking badass. Mm-hmm. Once we get past that, it's a little slow for a minute because Kenshin's enjoying life. It's everything he kind of wants. There's peace. He beat Shishio, all that kind of stuff. And then Inishi rolls back in and fucks shit up. And from there on in, once all that happens, it's like, once again, those crazy action scenes that you watch these live-action Kenshin movies for. And it meets on the, it's an anime, so I mean, it's based on anime or based on a manga, so it is a little melodramatic and all that kind of stuff. But you know what you're getting into if you've been watching the series this long. And it doesn't change the fact that I was still really gripped the whole time, because it's also kind of interesting to me because I watched the Rurouni Kenshin anime. Mm-hmm. I didn't read the manga. And at some point, the anime did the thing where it's like, well, we're going to go do our own thing now. So now, even though I'm watching the abridged version, these movies are more following the manga. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of interesting seeing like, okay, because I knew eventually Inishi would come in and all this, but now seeing it in live action and seeing the action and how badass it is, and yeah, I if you like those other Kenshin movies, I don't know if it's my favorite, but I mean number 4 was decent, but it was more or less a remake of Samurai X, and Samurai X is already kind of very just. I think the animated version's already fine enough as is.
Well, yeah, because Samurai X is amazing as far as the animated version.
And the live action movie doesn't really deviate that much. It's just kind of just the live action version of it, really. Mm-hmm. Where this, maybe this is too close to the comic for some people, but for me, I thought it was just this. It was like kind of like, oh, here's the story I always kind of wanted to know, and not only that, I got to see it in kind of a live action form. So I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a badass action movie. So far, it's just like I said, my list is going to be basically like genre and stuff we cover on the show all the time. So there's be very few like, oh wow, that's an artsy choice.
Yeah, I've kind of given up on the artsy choices though. Like the farther I get in life, I kind of go. The real hard dramas, the real artsy stuff. It's like, no, I want kicking, punching, and gun shooting. Like, you know what I mean? Like, let's get to the good stuff.
Yeah.
But no, that Rurouni Kenshin one, that was one I actually should have just checked out. For some reason, I don't know. It's one of those years where I felt like I just spaced out on like certain movies, and then it's like, oh yeah, that was there. Because it's one of those ones. It's just I felt like these things kind of just it's sort of like they get kind of like dropped off, and with no advertisement, no. Well, then again, I never see ads anymore, so maybe that also doesn't help the cause. when you pay for everything to have no ads whatsoever, sometimes you also have no idea what comes up because of that. But yeah, no, that one's really good. But going on to what are we on, number 8?
Yeah.
With more martial arts mayhem, because I feel like that's what we're sort of going with here and so on. I'm doing G.I. Joe Snake Eyes.
Oh yeah, that's one I wanted to check out, and I think we're just gonna have a lot of like punching, kicking, and shooting on both of our lists at the end of the day.
Yeah, well, and this G.I. Joe one was one of those movies where it just like once again felt like it came out of nowhere, and it kind of came back in the right time because it came back like right as movie theaters kind of opened up again, which I think I don't know if that helped it out necessarily because movie theaters have been just dry bones ever since. I mean, shit, you go see Spider-Man, it's still like it looks like it's like any other movie, but it's one of those ones where that G.I. Joe was like, okay, Snake Eyes, cool. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, yeah, let's have another G.I. Joe movie. I like the other 2 live action ones, but let's see what this is. And this was just one of those ones where it's just like, hey, let's just do G.I. Joe. We'll just focus on Snake Eyes and Storm Shadow and whatnot like this. Have just a badass kind of like, futuristic kind of kung fu type movie, which is, I think, is a great way to go if it's samurai ninja flick, and just action packed the whole way through. You know what I mean? Like, I was totally sold on it. I'm like, dude, this is great. Just tons of action.
Do you think this one's going to get a sequel?
I hope so. I mean, it definitely had the feeling like they want to do the thing like, of course, the Marvel thing where they build up with different characters, and so I mean that's what everybody's kind of trying. But this one was just totally badass. The only thing I just wonder is just because the way that sort of movies are kind of coming out nowadays, some of these ones just get kind of lost kind of quick, and just I don't know. The excitement level for movies is just not there this year, sadly enough, except for the extreme movie people.
This is one I did want to check out, and I'm wondering though if like something like the average person like is gonna want to say, okay, that's the Snake Eyes movie. Now we're gonna do the Roadblock movie. Now we're gonna do the Scarlet movie. Now we're gonna do the Duke movie.
They did have Scarlet in this one too. She was the other main character in this one. So they had about they probably had more than 3, but I know kind of like the standard G.I. Joe like characters and so on. But once you start getting into all the offshoot stuff, and there's the characters have come along, here and there, that's where I kind of it's like the same thing with Transformers. I know like the core Transformers, but once you start getting into like, oh, hey, this guy was in the 1998 show, and this guy was in like the 2014 one. I'm like, well, okay, I don't know. I only know so many of them. Yeah, but no. Overall, I mean, I haven't seen the G.I. Joe movie since it kind of came out, so it's like story-wise, I couldn't tell you exactly what was in. I just remember it was like, dude, it had great action in it. It was fun the whole way through. I had a great old time with it. I like both the guys that played Storm Shadow and Snake Eyes and whatnot. I thought they did an awesome job, and it does set it up nicely for like, hey, if they do continue this G.I. Joe like new saga, it kind of work. I wasn't too sure if this was supposed to be a new one or if it was supposed to at first when I saw just the poster for it, if it was being like a in a sense like a G.I. Joe 3, but like a spinoff.
I feel like it's probably a reboot because I feel like everybody.
No, it is, but like when initially, because it had no trailers, no nothing or anything like that, just sort of dropped. But yeah, that's my number 8.
So I guess my number 7, just keeping it with the anime theme, like I said, first 5 or so, no real set order. Evangelion 3.1.5. You cannot remember this title.
Evangelion 4.
Evangelion 4, yeah. That's my number 4 just because it's a long-running series I liked, and, I already thought it ended once. I'm like, okay, well, that was good. And then for a while, when we were talking about this movie, I was like, is this movie ever going to come out? And then it finally did come out, and not only did it come out, but it was really good. And yeah, there's some of the anime tropes that we've come to expect, and some of the over exposition and all the kind of like, let's quickly explain like all this mind shit, all this like deep philosophical shit, just real passing as we have this giant like as we're going through like this 2001 Space Odyssey cross thing. But at the same time, I feel like unlike previous versions of Evangelion, this one knew to like, all right, well, if we're gonna do all this crazy mental mindfuck stuff, let's have a badass action scene over here in the corner, and we'll cut back to the 2. That's something that I think they learned from. And on top of that, I mean, it's not that alone. I really liked what they did with the characters, because this is really, when it gets down to it, this is kind of like a story that's over 20 years in the making. And the idea of like, oh no, this has all happened before, and happened again and again and again. So it's kind of like these characters, after all these cycles and life ending and repeating, it finally, this is them bringing it to a close and learning from their mistakes finally, whether they knew they were repeating it or not. So, and there's a lot of good emotional payoff in it aside from badass action. I mean, when things, there were crazy weird moments that kind of caught me off guard a little bit here and there, but overall I think it's a perfect ending for that series, and I hope they keep it that way. I know they're going to do spin-offs, like they're talking about doing ones like take place in the 10-year gap between the movies, or they might do some stuff where it's like, okay, here's the other versions of how life turned out in the other parallel worlds or whatever. But it's not doing the thing where it's like, you get what I'm saying. This is the end, but they might go back and do other, like, other versions.
Yeah, other little side stories and so on. No, that one definitely adds a very good, like, grand finale. Just here it is. I like the way they sort of went with it. I like kind of the new things they had in there, how they kind of, finally Shinji kind of figured out, like, time to man up, Shinji. You know what I mean? Like, you're going to get it now. It's going to work out. Don't need to be crying over, just because every time you save somebody, everything else goes fucking to hell. But then I just like how just even with like Asuka and all that stuff, how she almost became like or not really space pirate, but like an air pirate and whatnot, and just was so like, beaten and battered over time, just like practically smoking a cigarette and sitting in the corner being like, death. What do y'all know about death?
She was taking no shit by the end of this, basically.
But no, that one is so solid, and I mean that whole series of all four of those is like, I feel like kind of the perfect way to sort of experience Evangelion. But that's like one of those ones that even if you look at that thing, it's like, oh shit, it's like 3 hours long and so on like that. But it's like, no, that all works.
It goes by pretty quickly, especially for something where they stop and just like, here's the exposition moment, take a seat, but even that goes by kind of quickly, quicker than you'd expect it to.
Yeah, well, I think
yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, I think it's just because there's just so much interesting stuff kind of going on where you're like, oh, fuck, I want to see where this is going. Or why are these characters like this? I mean, it's how many years in the future from the last one? It's like, so I think there's so much of that kind of interesting things going on.
Well, plus, even though Evangelion did have some slice of life moments, I feel like there's like that little like hour-long period in the movie where they're just at the village, and you get to see how you kind of see how Rei, who's always been like, life, what is life? What is love? Am I love? And just actually see her in like a realistic and believable way, kind of like, oh wow, shit's kind of cool once they actually leave the fucking, like base with nothing in it but debris and dead robots and like my shack.
Yeah, and the Ray shack.
My hot water heater. So.
Yeah, no. That one, that's just a great one. Fun all the way through and really adds to it. I mean, that's one of those movies like you definitely need to see the first three. Don't expect to go into four just by itself. I don't know what heads or tails would be made if that was the case, but
yeah, it's like I heard people say like, oh yeah, it's kind of like seeing Endgame after seeing but without seeing any of the other movies. Like it's beyond that. It's beyond Endgame. I feel like Endgame you can kind of piece things together. That one's like, what the fuck is going on?
Yeah, I mean it's likely because Endgame, as long as you just knew the concept of okay, Captain America, Iron Man, Spider-Man, just the core characters, you would be fine. I guess if you never read any of that stuff and maybe all you knew was Spider-Man is like the 1969 show or something like that, you'd be really confused. but yeah.
Yeah. So that's number 7.
7. So that puts me at mine. Well, mine I'm going with Matrix 4. That was mine there. And this is one of those movies that maybe if I watched it kind of again, like this one of those ones I felt like I needed the second watch. I never got that second watch and so on like that. And though I don't feel like it's nearly up to par with Matrix 1, 2, and 3, I still felt like, hey, I was still having a good time. It was still interesting the way through. Even the kind of the weird twists and turns they were sort of going, and even if it was kind of like breaking the fourth wall, almost like a Woody Allen picture and kind of talking to the audience, that works in the Matrix. That's like something that couldn't work in too many other movies and so on like that. And then when there was action, it was still pretty sweet and so on like that. I feel like there's some small things that could have been kind of added to it just to kind of make it fit more in line. Like it could have had a little bit more of like that sort of green or purplish blue tone of like the old Matrix to kind of like have that instead of just the clear. And I wish they were kind of wearing their suits. And I know there's some small things that we talked about before. I wish Neo did a little bit more than just putting his hands up to like do like the old. It looks like he's doing like the old man, like stop.
Well, that's what they see in the Matrix. Because in the Matrix, they see him as an old man, so he's like, ah!
Yeah, I almost wish it just would cut back every once in a while to like some of like the audience walking by, and be like, what the fuck's that old guy doing on the back of the motorcycle with his hands up? But no, overall, I thought it was still interesting and just adding certain layers to it and whatnot, and what they had to kind of work with. I thought, it was still kind of like, cool, I'm glad that we have this Matrix 4,
Yeah, that movie, if we were doing like a top 15, that movie would have made it for me, maybe. I liked it. I thought it was an enjoyable movie. It's also one of those movies I got to visit a few times. I've watched it twice since that episode we did. And it's one of those movies, like, there are things where I'm like, I wish you did this a little differently, or you guys could have toned back this, amped this up a little bit. But, I enjoyed the movie. I thought it was fun, and it kind of elaborated on some things. It had some interesting concepts, and hopefully, I don't know if they're going to get a sequel. Hopefully they get a sequel. If they don't, then, well, it's not a bad entry into it. It's probably my least favorite of the 4.
Oh, yeah,
but it's
definitely.
not a bad movie. Yeah, it's not a bad movie, though. It was fun.
Yeah, no, it'd be interesting to see where it kind of goes. I don't know. It felt wrong to not have that somewhere on the list. I don't know why, but I was like, well, there we go. That's where it's at. It'll sit there.
I figured you'd have it on your list. I'm like, well, from divvy it up. I'll leave it off mine. If we were doing 15, it would be on there. But
yeah. We've learned that 15's way too much.
Oh yeah, we had our 3-hour episode or whatever that was.
Yeah.
Okay. I guess that leads me to my number 7. That was 6. We're on 6 now. My number 6 is Last Night in Soho.
Oh yeah. That was a really good one. It was just kind of has very interesting concepts going on. Got the great, of course, soundtrack and whatnot, like any of his movies always sort of have. And what I kind of liked is, you watch that trailer and it almost doesn't give away a whole lot in that trailer. It's just kind of like, okay, here's this kind of cool girl who, dreams of being in the 60s and, being there at the Thunderball premiere and what have you, and goes back in time and it's magic and blah, 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 blah. Oh, and there's a little bit something scary, but you don't really know what that is yet. You're going to find out. Maybe there's some murder happening and whatnot. She's going to see it and whatnot, but it didn't really explain a lot. It just kind of was like a cool intro trailer. And then when you kind of get into the movie, it's like, oh, it's just kind of interesting, like murder mystery where, you're kind of seeing, like, is this kind of real? Where's this coming from? Who are these kind of characters? And even the twists and stuff in it too, kind of were like, oh, okay, that's actually pretty cool.
Yeah, a couple of the twists actually did kind of catch me off guard. There was no twist. I'm like, wait, what? But I thought that it did a good job of it, because I feel like majority of these types of movies, you can call it from a mile away. Mm-hmm. By within the last 20 minutes or so, before the big reveal happened, I'm like, oh wait, I think I know what's going to happen. But at the same time, it was still really entertaining, and majority of those twists did catch me off guard, and it was this movie that's, even when the twist is done, it's still really enjoyable. Just with the setting, the look of it, and usually when people say the lighting, I'm like, all right, what are you're just trying to, who really pays that much attention to the lighting? Come on, you're just trying to sound
unless
like a little
you're a
film
filmmaker,
snob.
yeah.
But the lighting in that was really cool with the way they did a lot of the nightmare sequences, or when she was having a vision, and just the different ways they use that. Whenever and I do like that steady, it was, you could call it a horror movie, but it wasn't like a nonstop, it wasn't trying to be like a Blumhouse movie. It was like a jump scare every 5 seconds or something. But it was doing that thing where you're just watching this girl in her life and trying to see this shy girl kind of click into London, into the cool hip kid London scene, but being this little girl from the country, not little girl, but this shy girl from the country, and then this dark thing is unwilling, and I just really liked that whole mystery that unfolds throughout that whole movie, and who I feel really bad for is that dude who's trying to get with her the whole time, because at some point he's like, is it really worth it? Because he doesn't know what the fuck's going on. So the moment when they go back to the room when she's having a freak out, which I understand why she's having the freak out, but he's gonna be like, what did I do? And then later, spoilers.
Literally, it's like the madam comes up practically wielding a broom, get out, you! No boys in the house.
And then later he comes back and she's like, I'm sorry about last night. Oh, it's okay. I only got thrown out in the street in my underwear and stepped on glass and all this and that. But it's fine. Okay. I'm here for you. Dude, you're too understanding, dude. And then goes back I'm just gonna check up on her. Gets stabbed. Spoilers. Yeah, exactly. But luckily, he makes it out. But still. That was just a really enjoyable movie, and Edgar Wright's one of my favorite directors. I don't think it's, and I'm not, I feel like I'm being a negative little bitch coming in, I liked it, but the reason why it's not higher is because, but at the same time, that said, it's probably my least favorite of the movies he's made, but that being said, it's still probably better than majority of a lot of other movies, so. Well,
that's sort of the same way I kind of thought, too. I liked it a lot, but I'll say this. it doesn't have maybe that same rewatchability that all his other films kind of would have. Like this one's very interesting and cool. It kind of, you know, it reminds me a lot of stuff like kind of like Suspiria and like Black Swan and things like that. And they're very interesting movies, but they're not like, hey, let's just throw this on all the time. It's more like you could kind of watch them, you know, every once in a while, and it's like, oh, this is very cool and so on like that. And I think that's how I felt about Last Night in Soho. It's a very interesting, it's a very cool movie, but a lot of times the rewatchability almost can outweigh other stuff, I feel too. And like that's the only thing about it. It's one of those cool movies, but like, you know, I'd probably be good if I watched it about 10 years from now, then I'd be like, oh yeah, this is a sweet movie, and then you kind of forget about it a little bit and so on like that, and let it be kind of refresh again. That's how it sort of works. But it's not like it's gonna be like, you know, World's End. You can always just throw that movie on.
Yeah, I did get some kind of like Dario Argento vibes watching this. And what's cool about it is, you know, something like this. I mean, if you're looking for the Edgar Wright isms, and if you didn't know you're seeing an Edgar Wright movie right off the bat, it might just fly right over your head. Like, this movie's kind of a little bit more stylish, a little more hip than I thought it would be. And then, you know, you see the name and directed by, like, oh, that makes sense. But, like, once you're looking for it, you see all those. But it could be someone else's movie, which is also a cool thing. I kind of like it when a director can do that. Yeah,
well, it's just kind of neat because it's almost like he got to try something completely different than what he normally does. And I think that's what kind of, you know, yeah, it has like, once you kind of know it has the feelings, but it is something way different than like his normal type of movie. But yeah, Last Night in Soho is really good. Which leads me to, what were we on, 6?
Yeah.
So my number 6 is the new Resident Evil movie, the Welcome to Raccoon City, which most people would be like, "What the fuck? That's on your list?" And, well, you know, if you like Resident Evil enough, it's one of those ones. And here's again, once again, it's not a perfect movie. No, it's not. But it does kind of do a lot of things right and hits the deep cuts. And even when it is kind of, there's some weird kind of change. There's a couple of actors in it and so on that you're like, that's a fucking weird choice, which I know that that's probably not the people making the movie. That's probably just Sony Pictures or whatnot overhead. But whatever, they still actually, even if they look like, they don't even look like, it's like, what was the fucking casting director blind or something like that? Like, they still act it out totally fine, and you kind of accept them as the characters and so on like that. And it just kind of gives just a good, like, hopefully this is a good start to like a new run of Resident Evil movies. And it's not saying that, you know, I enjoy those other Resident Evil movies. I take them as a completely different, like, I'm not watching, you know, the game adaptation. I'm watching the alternative, you know, universe, Earth 3 of Resident Evil or something like that. And if you do that, I've enjoyed them for what they are and so on. But it's one of those series that's like so many things. It's like, you know what? It needs to be kind of just restarted. It's sort of like the X-Men. It's like, it had a good run. Don't get me wrong. I like him and so on like that. But let's kind of restart it and let's see if we can go closer to the source material. And that's sort of how I felt like Resident Evil Welcome to Raccoon City was. You know, and it does a thing where it kind of combines 1 and 2 together with some other elements in there of, like, you know, Resident Evil 3 and a little bit of 0 and what have you. And even Code Veronica, which is just kind of cool. Granted, it probably should have had a little bit more time to kind of expand on it, like either an extra hour of movie or make it 2, but I feel like you could just do it an extra hour. Maybe when it comes out on Blu-ray, it'll have like an extended cut. That could be kind of neat, but that's probably asking too much. But other than that, though, it's like the characters are good, the action's great, it has a lot of Resident Evil moments in it. It hits well in the horror, captures a lot of the moments really well. I enjoyed it.
I can't speak anything on it because I didn't see it, and I have not played original Resident Evil games. Like, for me, it's 4, and a little bit of this one, a little bit of that one, but never played 1 or 2. But the second I saw, like, all these negative reviews on it, I'm like, Spencer's gonna love it. It's just the way it works. Not that you're looking to be the contrarian, but you see the things, or you have the appreciation for things that others don't really. A lot of other shows, I think, just kind of like, this sucked. Like, well, you guys saw this thing over here, right? Yeah, I feel like the second I knew that the second I heard all these other things, like, Spencer's gonna love it. I know he's gonna find the things that these guys hate, or he's gonna like the thing about it, you know.
The funny thing about that too is, like, all my Resident Evil buddies all really enjoyed it too, because I remember it was like one of those ones, like, literally, and it was kind of odd. It was one of those ones, like, day one that movie comes out, like, I just kind of hit up some messages to, like, RJ and Cisco, Pizza Boys represent, and I was just kind of like just wondering, and all those guys, they went out and saw it right off the bat too. And it's like, oh, okay, cool. And they're all like, yeah, dude, I dug it. You know what I mean? Like, I like the characters, and even though it's kind of different, like, you know, it was really neat going the right way. So I feel like a true Resident Evil fan fuck those other people. The true Resident Evil fan can kind of appreciate and see where it's going. Yeah, it might not be perfect. It's not like the fucking novelizations that are like, you know, spot on dialed in, but it's still going the right direction. You know, it's it's doing kind of things, I think, right? I think even like it's one of those kind of movies, you give it a sequel and you can get even more dialed in. I think sometimes people kind of forget that a lot of times, just because like the first one might not be 100% there, it doesn't mean that the sequel can't get 100% there. I mean, it's like the Sonic the Hedgehog movie. I mean, the Sonic the Hedgehog movie is, you know, already extremely good, but that sequel I think is going to be a fucking grand masterpiece. I hope I'm not like Kingsman 2, like fucking building it up, but
if the Sonic the Hedgehog movie, Sonic the Hedgehog 2, the movie, if that thing is anything less than as good as the first one, then it's going to be like, what the fuck happened? You know, because it is going to be one of those, I think it might even be like that kind of like when we were so amped up to go see Wreck-It Ralph. Yeah. Like, yeah, and then like walking out of it, oh, fucking
fuck
sucks.
Was this? Yeah, this is like one of the worst movie experiences I've ever seen. And it just feels wrong because that was not what I told myself 2 hours ago.
Exactly. And like, so I'm trying to like I'm optimistic about that movie, but at the same time, like I also like I'm trying not to be overly optimistic on the chance that like I don't know, you know what I mean? For all you know, that's the only scene Tails and Knuckles are in for the whole movie. Yeah. Not that I think it's gonna happen, but you never know. Sometimes like, really, guys, really? But we'll find out when that happens. But hopefully this movie gets a sequel. Just aside from other people getting employed and getting a job, it'd be also good just to, you know, give it time to like build and become something new, or not new, but be, you know, continue with the other games.
I mean, I guess the good thing about Sony Pictures is even if, depending how you like Sony Picture movies, they're pretty good about still pumping out a sequel, even if people said they didn't want it. So you know what I mean?
Oh, we got so many people clamoring for Morbius, the living vampire.
You know, there's gonna be a Venom 3.
Yeah.
So,
for some reason.
So it's just one of those ones. I mean, I guess you got to give Sony Pictures credit for that. Hey, you know what? There's many other companies out there that just give up. You know, not Sony.
A for effort.
But,
our slogan.
But no, Resident Evil though, I think it's one of those ones. Anybody who likes survival horror, I mean, and if you want just like kind of like the very abridged version of Resident Evil 1 and 2, it's a good way to be like, hey, I get my Resident Evil experience, kind of boom, 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 and it's solid, it's cool, it's interesting. Okay,
so I guess that leads. God, are we already at number 5? I feel like, look at my list. Like, did I miscount? Because I feel like I'm going to say this one and Last Night in Soho could be almost interchangeable with each other. Nobody. The Bob Odenkirk movie, which is, to some extent, it is kind of like it is kind of a John Wick clone.
Well, it's literally made by the guy, the writer's the same guy.
Oh, there you go. Right. All right, that explains it. So, all right.
So when you hear it like that, it almost doesn't sound so bad. You're like, oh, okay, well, never mind. That's okay. Well, that movie's one of those ones. Like, I was so sold on that movie for the fact that you got the writer of John Wick, but it also has the director of Hardcore Henry, and that almost got me even more than that too, because
I didn't know that was him.
Yeah, so it's the rush. So you get this Russian production and whatnot. And Hardcore Henry was already such like an interesting, cool movie when that kind of came out, and it was just a full Russian production and what have you. And
made my list the year it came out.
Yeah, and it even had. My favorite part too is like not only was it just like a first-person shooter movie, but it started getting like kind of Metal Gear Solid in it and so on like that too. And then when Nobody. Once I finally got to see that kind of took me a moment, because the downfall was that movie came out right before theaters started opening back up again. So I felt like it was kind of one of those ones where it's like, you know, and if you maybe live in Texas or somewhere, you know, then you can go see it. But, you know, everywhere else, you know, nope. And I say this like probably everywhere else, probably the other 49 states are like, dude, or 48 states probably. Let's ixnay New York as well too. They're probably like, yeah, we could all go see it. I don't know what the fuck's wrong with your guys. Like, yeah, it's. Yeah, fuck you guys. I know movies are made here, but that doesn't mean we can go see them.
Nobody is seeing this movie.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, the thing with this movie is I wanted to see it, and like I later saw like on like I think when I was visiting my parents, like my dad, like he rented it and loved it and bought it. He's like, you gotta check this shit out, you know. I'm like, all right. And then I knew I'd like it, and then I figured I'd like it, and then watch it. I'm like, oh god, this would be so much more badass than I thought it would be. And the thing about it is, when you say it's kind of watered down John Wick, you think that's not really a selling point, but I think what's interesting about it is because John Wick takes place. One of the cool things about John Wick, at least when you see the first one, is you just think, okay, it's a guy going to get revenge on the asshole who stole his car and killed his dog. Mm-hmm. But then you're like, oh wait, there's a whole secret society of fucking assassins that use their own currency and have their own services. They only you know. I'm like, oh, this got a whole lot weirder and deeper than more creative than you initially thought. Mm-hmm. Aside from badass action, and this movie. It is very much like a very, like a guy who, you know, I feel like it's not that crazy over-the-top world of John Wick, but it's a guy, like, I just think, because it's a movie almost about, like, and I don't like using this term too much, because I feel like people often misuse this term and use it for anything that's masculine, but it's almost speaking on toxic masculinity to a certain extent, in the aspect of, like, you got some guy, like, talking down, you got everybody talking down to Bob Odenkirk, being like, yeah, man, you know, if I was there, I would have killed him. I wouldn't have done it like a real man. I would have done it like this. I would have done it like that. And he's like, okay, yeah, all right. And then, you know, deep down, he's like, bitch, you don't know half the shit I've fucking seen. You know, and that's the thing. Like, the guy who really would do it, or the guy who can handle himself, is the guy who's just like, just shut the fuck up and let me handle this the way I need to handle it. Where everybody else like, really, dude? Really? He's just surrounded by all these people who are just talking shit to him. And it's not like, you know, falling hard. Where
falling down?
He finally... Falling down. Yeah, falling down. Falling hard is something else. Falling down... It's not like that. It's more like, I kind of like how he just finally snaps and he goes after the people who broke into his house. And he gets in there and he sees that it's another family that's struggling to get by. Their kid has asthma and he just wants to beat the fuck out of somebody. He's like, fuck! And he just leaves because he can't, like, because, like, clearly these people are worse off than me right now. I want to fucking kill them, but I can't. And then, like, all those Russian, like, mobster douchebags get on the bus. And then he goes, stops the bus, like, I'm gonna fuck these guys up, you know, and then just goes to town on them, and then from there on in, because I like how dreary and drab and ugly the movie looks for a while, just because it's not really interesting looking. It's just so dreary, so day-to-day life, so boring. But then once shit gets rolling, it gets rolling, and it doesn't stop, and the conversations are witty and fun. Like, I've never met a black Russian before, you know, like that kind of shit, you know, or like the relationship he had with was that RZA that was in there?
Yeah, RZA's in there
with his dad also, and
yeah, it's got fucking Doc Brown from Back to the Future as the dad.
Oh, that was Christopher Lloyd.
Yeah. That's the thing. So it's like the team of Bob Odenkirk, Christopher Lloyd, and RZA was just like, dude, this is so cool.
I didn't even fucking recognize him.
I know. It took, when I was watching it took me a second. Then I was like, holy shit.
Bob Odenkirk, RZA, and
Christopher Lloyd, like, and they're
trip.
They're literally all kicking ass. Like, no, that movie's like. That movie to me was pure perfect. That I hate to say it, but that's one of the few movies of this year that I thought was like, holy shit, that is like pure perfect, nothing wrong with it. Like, it was one of those movies that I literally I went out and just bought it straight up on Blu-ray. I'm like, okay, I'm going the distance, you know what I mean? Like, let's just see. And I was like, oh, so worth it. So good. The action in it the whole way through, so creative, so badass. I mean, it's like anything. If you like kind of like any of that John Wick stuff, I mean, this movie kind of sells it there too. But then it's like the combo of John Wick and kind of like you still feel that hardcore Henry-ness in it too. And it's just like, oh, dude, this is such a badass action flick. I was so sold on that.
Oh yeah, that one definitely. So yeah, that's my. I mean, I guess but numbering by this point. Now I'm looking at my list. I'm now looking that probably could have been 2 or 3. In all honesty, now I'm looking at my list.
That's sort of what happens. You start talking about the movies again. And you're like, wait a second, I kind of like that a little bit more. You know. So what are we on, number 5 now?
Yeah.
So my number 5 is Last Night in Soho. So, and that felt like, I put that there because that felt like a good center of the the kind of this sounds weird. I probably actually I would obviously watch Resident Evil more than that, so now I get that weird feeling like that. But I feel like Last Night in Soho is definitely a much more put together film and so on like that. But that's always sort of how it is. But no, I still enjoyed that one quite a bit, as we just said. So that puts us to number 4 now. Number
4, I'm gonna say, this is kind of a weird one, kind of bending the rules a little bit. I mean, I really don't know if it's my number 4 because no, I'm just saying. Well, first off, I'm now second guessing, thinking about Nobody. I'm like, Nobody was really fucking badass. But aside from that, I'm also thinking like, what this is technically 2 movies is one, and that is Batman: Long Halloween. And the thing about that is, when we first watched them, we watched them kind of like when they came out. And when they came out, they're good individual movies that are fun, and also they get the cross of it's a good adaptation of the story. But at the exact same time, it is obviously meant to be something in one like long 3-hour movie, which I haven't had a chance to watch this movie back to back. I was playing catch up this whole time. These last week or so, I've been trying to play catch up with movies I've been wanting to see to cover for this show, and I never got a chance to go back around to watch these movies back to back and see how they flow together. But I know that this is one of the best Batman movies, possibly back to back. So, and since I can't say for certain, I'm going to say this is probably more my 5 or 6. But I'm just kind of like, I can't say for certain without watching it. But I know that this is definitely one of, if you put it together, this is definitely one of the best Batman movies.
Yeah, no, I kind of agree there too. Is I didn't get the chance to watch them both again. I mean, at least the upside is they did come up. They came out only it seemed like a month apart from each other. But this is one of those ones, and now it makes almost kind of feel like I should just replace Justice League Snyder cut with this Batman one here, because this one technically is. And maybe it's just that one because it's like, okay, you already have the book and everything like that, and this thing was totally solid the whole way through, and liked everything about it and whatnot. And when you do start to combine them together, I think that's when like the power is unleashed. If you could just watch it back to back as a 3-hour long picture, what have you, that would definitely be it. But that Batman one, the Long Halloween, but that was like the movie that I felt like we were waiting for a good long time, because it felt like, okay, they've done all the other big books, Dark Knight Returns, Batman, Year One, they got all kinds of ones The Killing Joke, but then it's like, when are they going to do Long Halloween? That feels like it. I mean, they even did Hush and so on, and the Long Halloween, I felt like, was the one where it came out. It's like, oh no, they really got that done. They did a real solid job on it. Even put some new kind of twists and turns in there, but doesn't like detract, from the original one. It doesn't have that kind of weird feeling that sort of like how the Hush one sort of did. And it's not that the Hush one's bad, but it just felt like you want to be careful with how creative you feel like you're going to get in your alternate version of it, Yeah,
and I feel like I'm fully aware that Long Halloween does have some plot holes in it, like the original book, and I feel like this movie fixes those plot holes. Some of the things you can kind of see coming from a distance just because of reading the book and whatnot. That said, I feel like in some ways it doesn't return the feeling of reading the book for the first time and being like just so invested in the story, but it does fix a lot of the problems that all the plot holes the first one, and there's only really one thing, and that was there is multiple killers in the book. In this, there's only one killer really, so it has a good excuse of wrapping everything up, and I thought all the changes were necessary and actually fit it pretty well.
Yeah, no, that one is super solid. Now I feel like I wish that was on my list now. I'm looking at my list. I'm like, I just want to shuffle this up. Fuck it. Like, what can I knock off of here? Fuck it. Matrix 4, get out of here. Let's.
I know it happens every year. Year, there's always there's a movie I started. There's a movie I started and I couldn't finish it in time. I bought it, I rented it, and then like something popped up and I couldn't finish it in time. So shit, that might not make my list. Who knows? We'll find out.
Don't you hate when you do that? Like, it sounds weird, but if I feel like if I bought it, like it's not like it was just like on like one of the streaming services, but I bought it and so on like that. That was like there was like the movie the Last Duel, like that was one of those ones I bought because I just went out and bought a handful of them and so on. And that was one of the ones that I probably would say if it was number 11, I probably would have thrown it on there. It just didn't feel like it was a top 10 one. But it was just like one of those ones where I felt like I bought it, damn it, I gotta fucking watch it and so on like that and get through it, And it's a Ridley Scott movie.
Is that the medieval Me Too movie?
I guess I don't know. It's a literally.
I just took it as that because it's like this guy like trying to get pull some shit on me. Fuck no, I didn't. Fuck you. Yeah, she's a fucking whore. Like, you know, like that's kind of what I got from the trailer. You know, like.
Well, it's one of those movies, like, it's weird because it has so many things going on to it. Like, it sounds like, I feel like if you read the description of it, you'd be like, oh, that sounds like it's a horror drama. But then it's got weird comedic moments in it and very brutal action scenes, like, through there. There's a part that made me laugh so fucking hard because Matt Damon literally looks like he's, like, going to, like, a fucking Metallica concert in there, and he's, like, he tries to be French, but he's just, let's be honest, he's Matt Damon still, you know? not saying anything against it because he's still like that, but there's a part where, like, this guy accidentally lets this horse, he's explaining this, he's like, I got this fine, you know, horse, and she's ready to mate and everything like that. She's gonna be the perfect breeding thing. And this horse comes running out the gate and just starts fucking the horse and jumps up. And Matt Damon's like, no! He gets a fucking shovel out, starts beating the other horse, and then fucking humping the other one. He's like, no! At the very end, the horse runs off. He's like, that's why I told you not to fucking open the gate! Like, I was laughing so hard. And then it cuts to, like, you know, where it'd be like, and Adam Driver, he gets rapey. And you're like, you look at Adam Driver, you're like, he does look like a rapist. I'm like, I love Adam Driver as an actor, but he does look like the kind of guy that, no. If it's a dark alley, you don't go down it. He's going to get you.
It's always kind of brooding. It always has that kind of look, you know, that constant, like, Kylo Ren scowl, you know?
Yeah, exactly. And then to top it off, it had Ben Affleck, and I didn't know he's in there. And he's just like, this guy's like, oh, I own some fucking land in France and whatnot. And come on, man, pull your pants down. Come on, let me see that dick of yours. We're getting fucked up tonight. I'm Ben Affleck.
Like, if this was literally the movie, this would probably be my movie, number one.
That's almost how the movie is. Like, that's the thing, is like the
moment Ben Affleck yelling at people to pull their pants down and pull their dicks out.
Literally, it's in the movie.
Really?
Yeah.
Now I'm renting this thing. Now I gotta see what it's all about.
It's weird, and I'll say this because once again, it's no one's like, as I talk, because it'd be like when I was watching it, it would be like, there'd be the moments in it where it's like, fuck yeah, it's like, dude, there's action's fucking great and so on like that. But then it'd kind of go to like, okay, now here's like the, you know, the kind of like, they tell the story from all three angles and whatnot. And, you know, it's just like, okay, here we get back to the rape thing, kind of boring, whatever, blah, 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 blah. Let's get back to like more like, I like the weird comedy and the action that it had in it and so on. And like the weird like property like trading thing going on in this thing. So it's one of those movies, like it's still very interesting, but like I felt like, it also kind of, I mean, because even the end, it's got like a 20-minute just brutal battle scene at the end where it's like, fuck you.
I'm just, please tell me it ends with like a freeze frame and like the boys are back in town place.
It doesn't have that, but it doesn't
have that. Okay, well, but not sold then.
But yeah,
after like mid yelling, after like whacking those, I told you not to open the fucking gate. Freeze frame. It's like that was abrupt as fuck. He's
just kind of has like the picture of like the horse from like fucking Animal House when it gets shot and does like that look like. But yeah, that's the thing.
This movie, straight up.
Yeah, as I kid you not, this movie had like it was. I felt like it was a lot more diverse than like you would expect it to be. It looks like it's just gonna be kind of like some boring old timey drama and whatnot. And it's like, oh no, it actually had some more stuff in there. But at the same time, I don't know. At the end of the day, other than like it had just like those moments, but I could probably like chop those moments to like, you know, like half of it, and then the other half you're kind of just waiting for those moments to come again.
Well, I'm definitely checking it out now. Ben Affleck yelling at people like, I got property, I got land, show me your dick. Make that the Red Band trailer.
Yeah, exactly. Shit, I didn't even know Ben Affleck was in the movie until I was watching it. So, but yeah, it's one of those ones where it's still interesting. As I said, as I talk about it, it makes me almost feel like once again like, But no. Okay, what are we on now? 4, 5?
I think we're on 4. Yeah. My number 4.
Wait, didn't you just go? I don't think I even went yet. We just talked about it.
Oh, yeah, you're right. You're just talking about. Yeah. We're 4. Yeah.
So my number 4, is that what we're on?
I believe so. Yeah.
Okay, mine is Raging Fire with Donnie Yen.
That is the movie I was watching before we recorded, and I couldn't finish it in time, and I really liked where it was going. I got about maybe like 45 minutes into it.
Because yeah, that was one of those ones that I literally just, it popped up in the store on Blu-ray, and it was like, And generally, if I see Donnie Yen, I just buy him. I don't even question him. I just go, you know what? I like just anything Donnie Yen. Even if he's got kind of a couple okay movies, it's just like he's like one of those ones like he's my guy. I just buy his movies and whatnot. So I was like, fuck it, this one looks really good and so on. It's got the big director. Got drawing a blank on his name right now, but he just passed away. Benny Chan. I want to say, but and this was one of those ones too that I'd like to give this one another go. I felt like this was like the year where I just didn't get the time to because there's always something else to watch. I never got these movies. I felt like a lot of these movies, if I could have gave them a second watch through, would have just sank in a little bit more. But this is one of those ones that it still offered a lot in it. It was just like, not only did you get great martial arts scenes, you got kind of like this police investigation type stuff going on. There was car chases, shootouts. It just felt like it was almost like an action movie greatest hits, in a sense. I don't mean that it was taking stuff from other things, but I mean, it just felt like it delivered on a lot of fronts, and the story was interesting the whole way through and whatnot, and just getting these cool scenes of the police kind of being sort of taken down, Donnie Yen having to sort of figure it out and whatnot, and having those little twists and turns in there. It was totally badass.
No, I didn't finish it. So, but what I did see of it, it did seem like it was kind of doing this thing yeah, it's a cop movie. Yeah, he's a cop that plays by the rules. People above him are corrupt. What are you going to do? But you didn't come here for that. You came to watch people get fucked up. And I feel like what I saw so far was meeting that on every level. And I think there's something about a lot of, both Chinese cinema and Korean cinema where they really have action scenes down to, a perfect science. I mean, anything... I'm trying to blank on the guy's name, but the guy who did I Saw the Devil and...
The Good, the Bad, and the Weird?
Good, the Bad, the Weird, and Foul King, and a
bunch
of other movies. Last Stand, yeah. The action in those movies are all so good. Even though Last Stand is an American movie, but still, he definitely had a signature on the last half of that thing, at least. They have that action down. When I saw this movie, I was like, God, these shootouts, I saw he shoots one guy in the head, then he's using him as a body shield, shooting a bunch of other guys, kicks him down, just follows him into the next room, and I was like, fuck. If I finish this thing, it would probably make my list, but I'm not going to finish it in time, so, it could have been.
Yeah, no, this one, as I said, I'd like to watch it again, because as I said, it just kind of had movie overload, so these things kind of ran together, and it was another one I was like, there was tons of great action, I love the living daylights out of it and everything like that, and... Yeah, it was pretty darn cool. It was definitely one of those ones where, because it's almost like getting to that point where, China, in a sense, Hong Kong was always like that. They just knew how to make the top tier of the top tier, action flicks and so on. But even I was watching the special features, they're even it's starting to get tough here in China now too. There's just a lot of things you can't do, and very rarely can you have these movies where you actually do have legitimate stunts and so on like that. Even though this movie also had some interesting fucking CG stuff in it. I saw some of the special features. And I was like, the fuck? That entire back, when they're doing the car chase scenes, they just have this walled off section of Hong Kong. They just put up I don't know, 15-foot wall, and it's literally in the middle of the city. When you see the camera above the wall, it's just, here's the normal city there, and they just blocked off 3 blocks in these walls, and then they just fill in all that extra stuff with CG in the background and just green screen stuff, just so it makes it look like they're just actually in the city, but there's these just fucking walls. It was weird. I was like, what the hell? Huh. Yeah, it was impressive in a sense, because I would never have known while watching it.
Yeah, I have to check this. I gotta finish this movie out. I was really enjoying what I was seeing. I think it's a crime that I know he's successful. His bread and butter is probably mostly Asian cinema and whatnot. But I think it's criminal that Donnie Yen hasn't been bigger in America. I think he's really just as good as Jackie Chan or Jet Li, and Ip Man alone. Come on.
Yeah, if that doesn't sell you on it, And what I always think of, the original movie I think I ever saw him in is he's the bad guy in Once Upon a Time in China. I want to say 2 with Jet Li as well. So, and they have an amazing fucking fight scene in that one.
I don't think I've seen Once Upon a Time in China. I gotta check that one out. But
those ones,
Jet Li and
those ones. There's 3 of them with Jet Li and then 2 of them without Jet Li, but they're so fucking good.
Golden Harvest, I'm assuming. Just a guessing. If I'm just assuming
Something like that.
Assume.
It's like literally it's like 91, 92, and 93. I almost want to say is the Jet Li ones, but
Oh, okay.
but they're so good. I think they actually just released a big fat Criterion set of those movies. I just have like the triple disc version of them or whatever, but that would be kind of a cool set to have because I've never seen 4 and 5, and those ones don't have Jet Li in them, but still it'd be interesting to see.
Be interesting, yeah. Yeah, well, I gotta finish Raging Fire because I was really digging that one.
But yeah, Raging Fire, super good, totally badass Donnie Yen movie, action packed. As I said, like it gives you like a lot in one. It's not just a kung fu movie. It's not just a police movie. I mean, you're getting great car scenes. You're getting all kinds of cool stuff. You're almost even getting sort of a feel of like espionage and what have you, and gangsters. Like it's just so many things in one film.
So I guess that comes to number 3 now.
I think so.
My number 3 is kind of another quasi John Wick kind of. I mean, not entirely. It's still its own thing. It's Pig. Did you see that one or hear about it?
No, that was one I did hear about it, and I did really want to kind of see that one. I didn't. That one I just didn't. We just ran out of time, and I just never got there.
I'll be honest. Like of all the movies I was playing catch up on and trying to like see before this podcast, like with the exception of Raging Fire, which I didn't finish. Pig is the only one that actually made it to the list. Like all these other movies I went out of my way to watch. Like, yeah, I liked it. No, I didn't like it, but didn't make the list, whatever.
Yeah, that happened to me too. That was like, there was the one, The Harder They Fall. That was the one I thought was going to be really good, and I was like, it was okay. It felt like
I didn't get a chance to watch it yet.
It started off good, and then it just kind of felt like a cheap made-for-TV movie, and it was like, I feel like there's something cool here, and there is moments, but it wasn't just something still missing.
Well, I still have to check that one out, but I know it's meant to be kind of intentionally being over the top and wacky, kind of near the end, kind of like someone's telling like the story of like an outlaw. I know that's kind of what it's going for, at least what I heard. Anyway, this movie, Pig. So the thing is, the setup is kind of like a John Wick setup, which is somebody's minding their own business and someone comes and fucks with them and takes their thing and they gotta go get it back. But it isn't an action movie, and this is probably one of the more like kind of weirder, kind of experimental kind of ideas because it's a total action movie setup, but it's not an action movie. Nick Cage is we kind of learn a lot of the stuff as it goes on. We're not giving it right away. We just kind of pick up on it as it progresses. He's living out like in the mountain, out in the woods in Portland, near Portland, and he has this truffle pig that he has a good relationship with, and he just likes to keep to himself and make food for himself and his pig, and he using the truffles the pig finds. And there's also, he has like a deal with some kind of like douchey entrepreneur type who's kind of his business partner, who he'll find a bunch of truffles with the pig, and then hand it off to this guy. The guy pays him and brings him back like, oh, here's some like batteries for your boombox or some whatever, And it's also one of those movies that's very minimalist on a lot of dialogue and whatnot, and you kind of learn things as it goes on. And essentially, some tweakers bust in and break into his place, steal his pig, and then he goes and he's like, "Well, I'm going to go into town and find my pig." And he goes to his douchey entrepreneur partner to help find him. The whole time he's like, "Can we just get another fucking pig?" Like, no, we got to find this fucking pig. This is the only fucking pig that's gonna do what you want to do. Mm-hmm. And they kind of go into like more or less, I guess, the culinary underworld of Portland, which sounds kind of like this is where the kind of John Wickness comes in, because there's like this weird like aspects you wouldn't see in a standard drama, like the things you'd only see in an action movie. But he's trying to we find out that he's like this like famous chef in Portland that everyone admires, but he just disappeared off the grid. Like, oh, where the fuck did you go? What's going on? Like, I'm looking for my pig. This happens. So he's trying to figure it out. At some point, he goes. This seems like something out of a Chuck Palahniuk book or something. they go into like a basement, and he starts ripping things out of a wall. He's like, "What the fuck are you doing?" He says and he basically says like, "I'm going to this place called the Portland Hotel. The Portland Hotel has been gone for since the 50s or whatever." It's just like, the hotel is gone. the basement is still there. There are like sewer tunnels that lead there, and there's like all these like, you know, bus boys and like waiters having like an underground like fight club like down there, like getting out all this pent up rage, like just weird shit like that it goes back to like, now back to the artsy drama shit over here, you know? And then, so it's just like every so often a movie comes out, like we'll talk about like, oh, I just have the balls to do it, or just be that weird about it, and you know, give you credit. Then you may sometimes see it like, did it pan out? Like it was kind of, I'm giving credit for doing it, but this is actually, they do the weird thing, but it actually fits and actually goes smoothly. And whenever he can confront somebody, he's not like, I'm gonna beat the fuck out of you till you give me a pig. He'll come to somebody and he'll kind of like pinpoint like the conversation. Like at some point when he's trying to get information from somebody, he's talking to like the chef who made this very pretentious, bougie, like overly expensive plate, and he's like, "Is this what you wanted to make? Because when you worked for me, you wanted to do, what was it you wanted to make? You wanted to do this. You wanted to make an English style pub, this kind of thing, do that." And he's like, "Well, people don't want that. Like, who are these people? Do you know these people? They don't know you. They don't give a shit about you because they haven't met you yet, because this isn't you." You know, and it does this real interesting conversation on, like, basically, yeah, it could be about food, but it could be about creative endeavors. It could be about, it's also kind of about grief and whatnot. So it's this very interesting movie, and it's maybe not a movie you can put on all the time, but God, I was really intrigued the whole time. Few punches were thrown, but I was still very just like, where the fuck's this going, you know? And yeah. Nick Cage, I mean, sometimes there's those jokes where you see him as like a really crazy over-the-top character, like, how the fuck does this guy have a career sometimes? And then you watch this, like, oh, it's these kind of roles. This is the kind of shit he's made for. This is like, only Nick Cage could play this particular type of character, and he fucking nailed it. And I really like this movie a lot.
Well, that's the thing, is you just realize that, like, Nick Cage is such, like, a superior actor, and I think that the average person thinks that he sort of just fell off the face of the earth, but it's like, no. He's been doing just really fucking interesting movies, like, the last, like, 5 years, and I think that's almost kind of cooler that he almost sort of did the thing where most people, when they kind of get to, like, their retirement age, they just start playing, like, people's dads in movies and so on. It's like, no, he's going to start doing some fucking really interesting stuff. I mean, that's just like, that movie about 3 years ago, whatever the fucking, I was going to say Mandy, yeah. I was going to say Maggie. There's a lot of M movies, I think, that year. It's like Maggie, Mandy, Molly's Game.
All about death.
Yeah. And that one was another one of those ones that was like so interesting and so on. And that's sort of like that pig one kind of felt like it looked like. And that was one of those ones I did want to see. And once again, it was on my list of stuff and just never exactly got to it, but it looked really cool. And I'm always down for anything Nicolas Cage.
Yeah, it's not, like, I'm not gonna lie, it's not a movie you can just put on any time, because it's a really atmospheric movie, and it's not really, you know, there's like not this big like fuck yeah payoff thing at the end, but it's a very somber movie, but with a lot of kind of like tough love kind of messages in it, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, no, that one sounds like a cool one to check out. I'll have to look for that. What does that leave us? Are we on 3 now?
Yeah, we're on 3. Okay,
so I guess we're on 3. My 3 is 007, No Time to Die.
I knew this would be on there eventually. Yeah, I like that. I'll let you go first because it's you're on your number right now.
Well, the main reason I kind of put this one, I guess, higher on my list, though there probably might be other ones that might be interesting more, I watch them and so on like that, is that I do feel this is one of those ones like I could go back to probably more often than some of the other ones, probably just because it's a 007 movie, so it'll fit in there. And this movie was still very kind of like interesting, and I felt like a good kind of comeback from even like kind of Spectre that was a little bit bizarre and what have you. And it delivers on, it's got great action in it. It's got kind of like almost like a greatest hits of all the Bonds, from being like Roger Moore moments to Sean Connery moments to Timothy Dalton moments, you know, and even things like George Lazenby moments. That's like the thing too, is it actually kind of does that a lot, you know, and then throw some kind of curves in there too that kind of would throw off certain people. Like, you know, as I always said, there's certain Bond fans that are gonna, there's just those moments in there where it's like, the fuck, that lady lady's the new 007, and it's just like, yeah. I mean, that's I know that's just there to piss people off, but it's not like that's the new 007. That's just there as like more of like a, kind of like a poking like the bear kind of thing. You know what I mean? Like, you do it just for the entertainment part of watching somebody get real angry.
I feel like, and I hope don't take this literally, but I feel like sometimes, like, to a certain extent, a franchise should fuck with the audience just a little bit.
Yeah.
Just to be like, hey man, just so you know, you're not always calling the fucking shots here, all right? We just gotta remind you of that.
Yeah, well, I feel like it's one of those ones where they're sort of just dicking with you a bit. Like that's sort of what it is. It's like this isn't what we're doing, but we're just gonna fucking pull the rug out from underneath you for a second just to let you sort of know. Like, and then at the end of the day, Bond's always still gonna be Bond. But yeah, no, the action in it's cool. It's got cool locations and whatnot like that. It sort of wraps up the whole Daniel Craig kind of story. I love how it also ties in just like, you get things like the Aston Martin literally using like all its gadgets like in a big old action scene, and then to top it off you get the Aston Martin that shows up from like the 87 Timothy Dalton not License to Kill, but The Living Daylights, so there's just all kinds of cool moments in there and whatnot. It's almost a movie that's almost a little bit too big for it. Like, it almost kind of, like, as we said in like our 007 kind of review, is it almost has more characters than it sort of needs. Like, it's almost that one you could probably simplify some of these characters just so they could actually get, because certain characters don't get the right screen time, like I don't know, the one that I always keep going is like, why is Moneypenny should just be that new 007 one, because she literally gets kind of pushed to the sidelines in this movie because there's just not enough time for her to be in there. Or then you also got the chick from Knives Out. That could also have been, or either that, or I felt like that girl could have been the new Moneypenny, and Moneypenny could have taken over the role there, and we just kind of upgrade them, and then we just don't have so many characters being spread out. I mean, it's the same thing for sort of the villains. Like, I know it feels like, here's our list. Now let me tell you like where I feel like it could kind of be better, but it's almost like the same thing with, having, what's his name? Shit, I'm drawing a blank. It's late.
Q?
No,
Q.
not Q.
M.
No, the villain.
Dr. Robot or Mr. Robot. I forgot.
Not Mr.
I don't
Robot.
remember the characters. That's the show he was on before this.
No, not fucking
Rami Malek.
No, not Freddie Mercury. The other one. Fucking the main 007 villain. Shit. I don't know why I just drew the biggest.
Oh, Blofeld.
Yeah, Blofeld. Like, realistically, I always feel like Blofeld should just be where just take Rami Malek out of there, and not say anything against him, but that really should just be Blofeld. Just like, why is that not Blofeld? But whatever, Once you kind of take it as is, it's still interesting, and you still get good action and whatnot in it, and so have you, but...
I liked it. It was an enjoyable. It didn't make my list just because I feel like there is a big lull in the middle of it for me personally. It really like slows down for a minute.
It does.
But the beginning is all fucking awesome. Like when he's in Jamaica, that's even cool too. Like I believe it was you that told me that like he had like a house. The creator Ian Fleming.
Yeah, he
had a house out. Yeah.
His house was called Goldeneye in Jamaica, and that's where he wrote all the books.
Yeah, and then he also, even that ending, like, it doesn't bother me that, spoilers, doesn't even bother me that 007 dies at the end. It's like, okay, they're just going to recast them and new series down the line, I guess. Mm-hmm. But, no, I definitely, I really enjoyed it. It was just kind of, could have been, like, probably trimmed a few things off in the middle of that film. But beyond that, no, I totally dug it.
Yeah, no, that's one of those ones. It's kind of like sort of like the Snyder cut, where it's like there's a couple parts you can kind of trim down a bit and just probably have a more streamlined picture. But no, it still was fun. As I said, the reason why I probably put it higher on my list, even though probably other movies I might like more in the long run, but is that I just felt like I probably would watch this one more often than some of the other ones.
No, I get that. So I guess that leaves us at number 2 now. Mm-hmm. I'll be honest, I'm kind of struggling with myself between these my last two, like which one goes where. For time being, right now at this moment, my number 2 is Spider-Man: No Way Home,
mm-hmm.
and I feel like that literally it's one of those movies that it's not that it very well might be my number 1, but I've only seen it once. So, and sometimes you got to take time to roll it over in your head, and there's a lot going on in that movie. But it was one of those movies that, like, not only did it push the Tom Holland Spider-Man movies forward, but it also did this thing where it kind of gave closure to past Spider-Man movies, but in a way that made sense. And in the way that it didn't feel like, yeah, it had some of the Marvelism comedy, but I feel like those Spider-Man movies have always been, the Marvel Spider-Man movies have always been action comedies. And this one just kind of embraced it, but at the same time, it almost used that to catch you off guard. Because when you get to the halfway point of that movie, it goes, oh, you're having fun? Well, guess what? You know, and then like, oh, shit, this just got real. And all the things that people have been complaining about this Peter Parker not having to deal with or go through, I feel like it all piles up at once in this movie. But not in a way, let's just slap a bow on this and get this shit rolling. But in a way where it's like, no, this feels very earned and really sincere for the character. And he also managed to take one of the worst received comic stories and make it into one of people's favorite Spider-Man movies, you know?
Yeah, well, this one's my number 2 as well, too, Spider-Man right here. And to me, this was like the Spider-Man movie I always sort of wanted, because for the last 20 years, for whenever these superhero movies come out, I would always be like, dude, why don't they just fucking get 5 or 6 villains? What's with this fucking one villain, one hero bullshit? Let's just fucking get this going. We know who these characters are. We don't need to sit here and slow turn it out. And that's what I think I love about this movie. It's like, oh no, here's Spider-Man. He's fighting fucking 5 villains. He's got 2 other Spider-Mans with him. And it's like, I almost like how they sort of acknowledge the other 2 Spider-Mans, and it's not especially Amazing Spider-Man, because that's probably, even though those movies, the first one's kind of once again kind of a rehash of the Spider-Man origin once again, I still think that one's just a very solid movie. But really where it's at also too is I also liked Amazing Spider-Man 2, even though it's not perfect, but I still like that one a lot. And I was the person who really wanted to see Amazing Spider-Man 3, because I thought that was going to be the very dialed in one, because they build it up so well in Amazing Spider-Man 2. It's just yeah, let's just see, they're going to do Sinister Six, it's going to be fucking badass, we're going to have Spider-Man fighting all these people at once, and then the fucking little bitches came out, and if there's enough bitches in life, it'll actually stop something, which is amazing. But that kind of happened, and it was just oh, well, that fucking stupid fucking cunts out there. And this movie felt like it sort of redeemed that. It kind of just said hey, no, here you go, here's your Amazing Spider-Man 3. You finally kind of get that, and it's fucking badass. And I feel like they dialed in the characters even more. Fucking Jamie Foxx, his Electro in this one was just perfect right in there. I like the way it kind of was. Even fucking Lizard and everything like that. I thought he was just going to be a background character with oh, he's not going to have any lines, and then all of a sudden it's oh, no. He's going to be here. He's not just a joke character in a cage or anything like that. They utilized him and everything like that. The only thing I thought was kind of a little bit weird is I don't know why there's not a Tom Holland villain in this one. You think that I felt like Vulture should be in it, and then you could literally just say it's Sinister Six.
Yeah, well, apparently there was an earlier draft where they wanted to have Sony definitely probably wanted to do this, have Venom come in there as the 6th member, and then by the end they square things oh, it was just a big misunderstanding, but then that didn't happen. But I think that would have been cool, or I guess it's already a 2-hour and 45-minute movie, so I guess trying to carve time out to how'd he get out of jail? How'd this happen? How'd that happen? Or is it the Scorpion instead? Something like that.
Well, we know he's out somewhere because he keeps appearing in that Mephisto trailer or whatever.
Morbius, yeah.
Morbius, Mephisto.
Well, we're not. Well, I think we gotta wait till Phase 8 till we get the Mephisto movie.
Yeah.
Well, we already did 7 Howard the Ducks, so now what we got?
So it's one of those ones, I know he's out there, damn it. You know what I mean? I keep seeing him, Shit, he was even in, the Venom one or whatever, but,
who knows, there might even be a other world thing, bro.
Yeah.
But we'll find out, I guess.
But beyond that, though, I felt like this movie just kind of delivered, that thing that I always wanted to see these kind of movies do. It's oh, finally we get that.
Well, I feel like in the film industry has this tendency to, people can talk about Marvel oh, it's just a money machine, that's all it is, there's no heart, there's no soul, says people who probably never watched it or read a comic.
Yeah.
But or maybe watched 2 or 3 of them and then called it good. But this goes out of its way, because I feel like a lot of times you'll be that movie never happened. And if they make a small little reference to the movie, they'll make oh, that's stupid, why would you want that, or why would you, whatever. Mm-hmm. With this one, it goes out of its way to, hey man, maybe MCU, people in the MCU weren't fans of Amazing Spider-Man, but still, there are people out there that like it. So let's give Andrew Garfield a moment. And let's actually, for people, if you never saw Amazing Spider-Man, I mean, he says what happens to Gwen. But that moment when, like, he catches MJ, when Tom Holland, Peter, can't, and he gets that moment of redemption, he's like, I fucking did it. He has that look on his face. He's like getting choked up. Like, are you okay? Like, are you okay? He's like, yeah. Like that moment, like that, right? Like, I don't like Amazing Spider-Man 2, but I thought that moment made Amazing Spider-Man 2 totally worthwhile. And going off what you said about Jamie Foxx, when they first announced Jamie Foxx's Electro back in Amazing Spider-Man 2, I was super amped because he's such a good character actor or just a good actor in general, not even when he's just playing characters. And Electro's one of my favorite Spider-Man villains. So I was like, oh, this is going to be fucking awesome. And then like, what the fuck is this? And then in this one, it's just like, oh, he's got that Jimmy Fox level smooth, and he's also restructured himself in a way, because of the energy or whatever, to look how he wants to look. So he looks like Jamie Foxx. And not only that, he kind of looks somewhat more accurate. Like when he brings it the lightning, how it has kind of like makes the shape of the mask. Yeah. And I was like, oh, fuck yeah. This is like, I feel like, between him, we get to see William Dafoe be William Dafoe again. We get to see like some, Dr. Octavius, even Thomas Hayden Church as Sandman got a moment.
And the Thomas Hayden Church as Sandman, that was the one that was actually the most surprising, I felt, because it's like, oh shit, I would not expected that character actually to be brought in. And I think that was so cool. And I think that's the thing is that this movie does is like, it's a perfect example of that, like, where once again the little bitches out there that fucking bitch and complain and get things canceled for us. They don't, like those people don't realize that a lot of times, hey, maybe one version doesn't work out the way it does, but you can always redeem yourself in a sequel. You can always kind of fix it like later on. And this movie kind of totally says like, look you could totally do that. You could take literally the same exact characters and fix them to exactly, to use them well. It's even like taking the Thomas Hayden Church, who's probably like the best part of Spider-Man 3, and it's like, he's fucking great. Let's give him some more parts to do on here. You know what I mean? Like, and I felt like this movie did it right without, you never made fun of the old stuff. You respected it all. You didn't do the thing where like, hey, let's hide this thing. Let's be Star Wars and act like the prequels didn't really happen. I mean, they did, but we're not going to talk about them, like kind of bullshit. Like, no. This one said, no, it all fucking happened, and here it is. You know what I mean? Like, here's the characters, here they are, and whatnot. And
it's also one of those things where, what was the example I was about to make? Sequels and whatnot. Shit. It'll probably come back to me later after we're done recording. But, it's just one of those things where, I'm just glad that this movie came out because it not only capped off like Tobey Maguire's story and Tom Holland's story and kind of gave them more closure for those series, but also added to Tom Holland. So, this could be my one. Who knows? Meantime, it will be. Oh, I was going to say, I don't like it as much as Into the Spider-Verse, but that's very hard. That's a very high bar. But that said, this may very well be my second favorite Spider-Man movie,
Yeah, well, this one's definitely one of those ones. I thought it was one of the, as far as like any of the Marvel movies I've seen, I would say it's definitely a top tier one there. I mean, there's literally nothing I can complain about it and so on like that. The only thing it makes me just want to see more of this kind of like style where it's just like, it would be kind of cool to see just a little bit more into like, once again, Tobey Maguire again like this, even pull some other characters out of those universe. Same thing with Andrew Garfield and all that kind of stuff. I mean, they kind of pull everything from his, but like, you know what I mean? Like utilize that even further and deeper and what have you. But no, that one was one of those ones where it's like, I felt like they got that one really dialed in. Like, it's like that movie was solid.
Mm-hmm.
Other than the fact that I had that fucking, at the screening that we saw, there was just they let a fucking hobo in there, like a crackhead hobo. And the whole time, this is one of those kind of guys that, like, he's literally having conversations with the fucking characters in the movie, and stomping every single time he laughs and getting up and moving all over the place and whatnot. And the worst part, too, is I thought there was two guys in there because he kept talking to somebody, and then there would be this other person, and I turn around and look, and I'm like, where the fuck is that other guy at it? I see that guy and so on like that. He literally had the crazy crackhead personalities hobo, and he had like his friend who tell him like, dude, come on, you gotta be fucking quiet, man. Like, dude, what are you doing? Oh man, I'm fucking sorry. Yeah. It's like, and he started fucking having. It's like. He literally has a fucking personality in there that's telling him to do the right thing, and then here's the other one is just letting too much free. I mean, this guy was having too good of a time. Where that point where like you're having such a good time that now you're ruining other people's times.
So basically, if Harvey Dent didn't get his law degree, is what this guy was.
That's really what it was. Because I remember, I kept turning around looking. I was like, where the fuck is that other guy at? Because I'll say this, the voice was completely different. Like, it did not, like, it wasn't just like, yeah, it was like, this guy had it down.
Is this where some Tyler Durden shit happens? Like, can you believe that crazy fucking hobo that was talking through the whole movie, walking from one side? I'm like, there was no crazy hobo. What are you talking about? Like, shit.
I know. Yeah, it's like one of those ones. But then it's like, but then
Sorry, I was in my cave.
But then I saw the hobo outside later on, and there's 2 police officers circled around him, so. they must have heard. Hey, you talking during Spider-Man? The fuck's wrong with you? That Spider-Man just came out today. You fucking talking during it?
This is gonna probably stop the show for like 2 minutes, but I gotta say this, and I know we both agree on this. I'm fine with armed guards in movie theaters for people who can't shut the fuck up during a movie. I'm fine with that. Pause the movie. Like if you gotta charge like an additional like $7 to $10 to pay those security guards, go for it. And if they start talking, give them a warning like, hey guys, can't talk during the movies. Please be quiet. And then if they keep talking, pause the movie. We're going to beat the fuck out of this guy. You all get to watch, then we'll play the movie after. Yeah. That's what we're going to do. And you know what? If it's a really rowdy crowd that thinks they can start some shit, guess what? We're just going to just hire more guards. That's all I'm going to say, all right? Yeah. It depends on, that's kind of how I feel. I don't know what it is. It's going to sound super, like, elitist and kind of bougie, but if I go to, like any AMC or Regal or something like that, there is like a 50% chance, if it's a big movie like Marvel or Star Wars or anything like that, some fucking dipshit is going to be, or multiple fucking dipshits, and we talking throughout the whole fucking thing if it's opening day, even if I go to the earliest screening possible. If I go to, say, like some little, like, something like, it's going to sound douchey, but like Alamo Draft House, where you got to be 21 to get in, and you also, like, the tickets are a little bit more expensive, and they're a little bit more stricter on that kind of thing, they will shut the fuck up, you know?
Yeah, well, oddly enough, though, some of the worst experiences I've had is at smaller theaters. It sounds so weird. Yeah. So it can technically happen anywhere. And it's just, I think the thing is there's just douchebags out there. And I hate to say it, it's like many things in life. They just fucking allow anybody in there. That hobo had $10 in his pocket. Of course they let him in there. Fucking, little Jimmy in the front, he doesn't care. Oh, it's okay, sir. Come on in. You got $10. Okay.
It's just the minimum wage guy from The Simpsons.
Yeah, practically. And it's just one of those ones where it's just like, Jesus Christ. I mean, and I'm going to say this. It's not saying that hobo guy didn't say something funny every once in a while, because there was I can't remember him now, but there was a couple ones where they're like, okay, he had that clever line, but it's like, dude, this guy won't stop fucking talking, and so on. And and the worst part, too, is when it's kind of a crackhead hobo, is like most of the time, I would say something, but that's the one where I'm like, no, it's not worth getting stabbed
Never turn your back on a junkie.
Yeah, no, especially because he's sitting behind me, so no. It was one of the few times where it's like, no, I'll say if it's an old person, fuck them. If it's, well, this guy was kind of old, but if it's, an actual old person who has no fucking, self-defense, fuck them. If it's a teenager, fuck them. If it's a kid, fuck them. But I don't know, if it's a crackhead guy sitting behind you, hey, I'm going to
ride this out for a minute.
I'm good. It's just, you know what, it's not worth it.
Stab me with a syringe.
Yeah, exactly, one of those ones, but,
guess that leads us to number one. Yeah, Spider-Man. Whoa.
But yeah, Spider-Man, great. But boy, was that experience like it was a little intense there,
So my number one is The Suicide Squad. Actually, is my number one.
Oh wow, I'm surprised that was that high up.
Yeah, because I actually watched it a few times between here and there, and I found myself really enjoying that movie, and aside from being a big DC fan, my only problem with the movie and it's not even like what's wrong with the movie. I guess it's just my fandom. Killing off, spoilers, Captain Boomerang at the very beginning.
That part, dude.
Beyond that.
That part bothers me. Dude, I was literally talking to somebody at Comic-Con the other day. He's like, dude, that part bothered me so much the first time I watched it. I'm like, yeah. I sat there with my arms crossed for like 20 minutes while I watched that movie. I did not think I was going to like the movie at all after that. That was like watching Thor Ragnarok, and in the very beginning, I'm like, what the fuck am I watching here? Like, that's how I felt. For like 20 minutes, it was really hard to get back into it.
Once I kind of accepted that he's dead, and it's all probably going to be rebooted in 5 years anyway.
Yeah.
I was like, okay. And just watching the movie, it's kind of James Gunn doing whatever James Gunn wants to do best. Because, yeah, Guardians of the Galaxy is really good, but he still kind of has that mouse over his shoulder, like,
yeah.
All right, don't get too many fucking ideas here, kind of looming over his shoulder at the end of the day.
Put the fucking cartoon gloves on! Put the fucking cartoon gloves on! That's fucking right, we all wear gloves around here.
This is him basically doing like the Tromaville Slither type shit he would do, but with more of a budget. And on top of that, he also is just a very good storyteller. He's good at having multiple layers and themes. Like, yeah, I think he's really good at like doing that thing where it's a very simple A to B story. It's not very complicated. It's like anyone could follow it. But it's how simple the story is gives you time to focus on these characters, like the small, minute details of these characters here, small, minute details of those characters over there. And what I liked so much about this movie is initially when you say we're going to do a Suicide Squad movie and it's going to be a bunch of fucking characters, even a lot of comic book fans don't really know that well, it's like, that's a weird choice. But then you watch it and like, well, when you think about it, it's kind of a movie about people at the bottom of the barrel, even for the Suicide Squad, with the exception of like Harley Quinn and King Shark, if you know the comics. Mm-hmm. Everybody else is like, well, Ratcatcher, Polka Dot Man, all this, And then you kind of brings in the whole story of, yeah, there's going to be a high body count, but at the same time, anybody can do good, anybody can change, and there's the message of the movie is said, like, why rat? Well, when he has a flashback about rats, with Ratcatcher's flashback with Taika Waititi dad. Mm-hmm. It says, why rats, Papa? And she's like, well, rats are the most loathed creatures in the world, but even they have purpose. So it's just kind of like, I kind of, when a movie can present like, crazy violence, stupid, crazy, over-the-top shit, like a starfish destroying a city, and then just like faces and heads exploding, and still deliver that warm, fuzzy, like Disney kind of message, and it feels sincere and feels legitimate and feels like very organic. I can't help give the movie credit for that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no. I mean, that movie I only saw it once, and other than my arms crossed for like 20 minutes going, what the fuck's wrong with this killing Cat Boomerang part off, and having a hard time getting back into it, which I felt like it probably on my second watch, once you accept it, it would be fine. It's just that initial reaction, Yeah, I actually did enjoy that quite a bit. I thought they had good violence in it, good gore. My favorite part is John Cena, really, at the end of the day. And I like the Johns. I don't care. I'm 100% pro John Cena's character in that thing. That's my choice over the other characters. Fuck the other characters compared to John Cena. But I don't know.
I'm Bloodshot. I'm Bloodsport.
I'm all John Cena. But it's one of those ones. Other than that kind of ending too, where they sort of force feed you like what you're supposed to believe kind of thing. I really did still like that movie and just the action in it and the fact that it is just, it's a smart thing DC can do is be like, hey, James Gunn, you know what, Disney, you know what, those guys kind of screwed you over, right? Well, come over to DC. Do whatever the fuck you want, in a sense. Just make sure there's a moral message at the end.
You don't gotta take your shoes off if you don't want to. Do whatever the fuck you want. Yeah. Well, I've started that Peacemaker show on HBO Max, and so far it's pretty good. Mm-hmm. And he's doing. Have you watched it yet?
I don't have HBO Max anymore, but.
Okay. Well, if you ever do see it, he is doing the thing where he's starting to question, like, was I wrong and all that kind of stuff, but still all the other John Cena aspects that you like of that character.
Yeah,
it takes place after Suicide Squad.
Yeah, because that's one of those ones I really did want to see that, because I'm like, that's fucking badass. And anything that wrestlers are in, I'm pretty much sold and so on. I would literally get HBO Max again just for that almost.
Oh, it's really good. I'm digging it so far. So yeah.
But yeah, no, that is still a good one. So yeah.
And that is actually written and directed by James Gunn. So
The show is.
The show is, yeah.
Oh, that's actually kind of cool. That almost like never happens, but you would think he'd just be like executive producer or something like that. But
at least the first 3 episodes are. I don't know as it goes on, but yeah.
Yeah. No, no, that's one of those ones I like to check out. But yeah, this is one of those years that's like it's an interesting. It's not saying that these movies are all kind of very good movies and everything like that too. But it's like there's very few. I guess I didn't say my number one. My number one is Nobody. I forgot. We didn't get that far yet, but I already checked
that could have been my number one too. I mean, my top 5 thing or top 6, whatever it was kind of very loose, and I was thinking, oh well.
And that's like, I mean, every year, that's kind of how it is. I'm not that picky of a thing where it's like, this movie's technically better than the others. It's just kind of like, that's how I've kind of lined the list up just as it is. I mean, I will say Nobody was the only movie I'd probably say on this entire list that I thought was pure perfect. I don't think any of the other movies were pure perfect. They all kind of had like, this could be, and that was the kind of the weird thing about this year is it was one of those years where it wasn't just filled with like, man, these movies are hard to like, they're all kind of like a little bit broken films. And it's not saying that they're not really still good, and enjoyable and so on like that, but they're still like, there's like, I don't know, it's like one of those ones like in a sense I would say it was a year of a lot of 3 out of 4 type movies, and that's not saying a bad thing, but you know what I mean, there wasn't tons of these ones. Like I feel like Spider-Man, like to me, Nobody, I mean, close to it though. I would say Raging Fire. That was still pretty good. I don't really have a whole lot to complain about in that, but it's still one of those ones. And maybe it's just because we kind of had like the mixed match of like movies kind of being finally released after 2 or 3 years, kind of the ones that filled in there, and it's just kind of like work in progress sort of year. Like everybody sort of thought 2020 sort of was, but those movies were technically already in the can. I felt 2021 was all kind of like the here's let's extend it out and we'll find a place for them.
Yeah, no. Well, going off Nobody again for a second, just the subtleties of that movie. Just because, like, when he's in the room, he's just like, he just like, I don't know. They're asked like, oh, you think you're getting out of this? Do you think you're getting out of this? They both like cops get a call at the same time. Both answer like, and both their faces at the same time change expression. Just like the subtleties of like things like that. Like, yeah, that movie. I knew it was gonna be good, but when I saw it, it totally like. Yeah. Blew expectations.
That's the same way I felt too, because I remember I saw the trailer, I'm like, that looks cool, that looks like one to see, but it didn't have that like, oh shit, I gotta be there. But then when I saw it, it was like, oh no, this movie the whole way through was just fucking killer, just perfect. Good comedy, great action, good story, good premise, amazing characters, everything about it. I was 100% sold on that one.
Majority of the time I feel like the movie's like, that looks good, I'll check it out. Not always. Majority of those are the movies end up always being my number one that year. Yeah. Because Nobody could have been that. I mean, it really could have been 4, 3, or 2 even, But, like, that happened with Nice Guys. Yeah. I think that happened with, like, Snowpiercer. So, whatever's my number one, half the time, it's like a movie like, I'll check it out when I can. And then like, oh, fuck, that was really good. Yeah, no. Well, that's you mentioned Nice Guys. That's what Nobody sort of feels like. That feels like one of those movies where it's like, that looks interesting. That looks like a cool one. And then you kind of watch it and you go, oh, shit, no, there's a lot going on here. Mm-hmm. And the same thing with Snowpiercer as well, too. That's like in that same boat, too. Except for Snowpiercer sells me real quick because I'm like, I love snow and I love trains. You must love Polar Express.
Boy, well, I saw it in theaters, so I guess I did. I don't know, but yeah, that's the thing about this year. This year was kind of just one of those interesting ones. Like, I feel like I could take my list and just shake it up, and other than a couple of them, like probably Spider-Man and Nobody, like, they could kind of, wherever they lie, that works too, I'm kind of like, I'm bouncing between, like, I feel like Suicide Squad probably is my favorite, and Spider-Man is pretty close to it too. I don't know. I know I'm kind of going back and forth, like, so indecisive. Like, maybe it's my number 1, maybe it's my number 7. I don't know. But like, it's more like 1 is probably Suicide Squad, then like somewhere in my top 4 or 5, or there's like 2 through 5 can be kind of shuffled around a little bit. I don't know. It doesn't fucking matter. Yeah, at the end of the fucking day, it doesn't matter. They're just all interesting movies. I think that's what we all come to the conclusion. Hey, here's a list of just things that we've found interesting and enjoyable and whatnot. And of course, there's always something you miss. That's always how it is. I now refer to this as the hell or high water syndrome, because that was the one that I remember, like, we just kind of missed, because I remember that came out for like a week and disappeared, and then when we finally saw it like a year later or something like that, I was like, what the fuck? That could would have been probably at least like between 1 to 3 on my list. I was like,
Yeah.
so there's always those kind of films and so on. But yeah, beyond all that, you can tell us what you think about all that good stuff at Twitter or whatnot like that. You can find all our links at oldmanorange.com. We got more podcasts, comic books like Pizza Boys, old animations, and that other fun stuff. Till then, I'm Spencer Scott Holmes.
And I'm Rain Dunnigan.
And we'll see you some other time.
Later, folks.